On time. All right, welcome everyone to the August 14th Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions in the room. I'm Dana Trey with SCTA, RCPA, and I'll pass it to my left.
Hi, Jared Hall, Transit Manager of Petaluma Transit.
Stephen Schmitz, Sonoma County Transit.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Drew Nichols, SCTA.
Yeah, let's do the room first and then so Kathleen
Sullivan, Marine Transit.
Owen Christofferson, Smart.
Rachel Eads, Santa Rosa City Bus.
Great. And then let's move to the Zoom. Why don't we start with
Don't we read the names off just
that would
to
be
avoid
great.
popcorn?
Thank you
So
so
I'm
much.
just gonna read the names, everyone. So we see Maria RC from Petaluma Transit, Adam Garcia, Steph Britt, Ross Clendenin, all from SCTA, RCPA, Emily Betts from Smart. Also on the call, we have David Davenport and Jacob Brown, David Liebman. I think that's everyone. If I missed you, now's your time to say hello, or otherwise, Dana, back to you.
All right, great. Is there a Jake?
Hey, just so you know, I'll be seeing you in person probably in about 15 minutes. Still on my way. This is David Davenport. Hi.
All right, great. So are there any public comments on items that are not on the agenda?
Hey, Dana, this is David. I have a public comment.
Great. Good.
Hi, y'all. I'll be quick. My name is David Lehman, Energy and Sustainability Manager at Sonoma County Junior College District. I wanted to just share with you all that the college, both its students and working on its leadership, is committed to participating in the first week of October on the national movement of a week without driving. This is really to help promote the experience of non-drivers in our community, and especially the impact of our student population who provide a large percentage of non-drivers within Sonoma County. And so you all will see, for all you technical staff folks, you'll probably see an email from me in the near future, just sharing with you all about how SRJC is going to be participating with its leadership and its staff. And then also, you know, as you know, letting you all know that we have students participating, and then giving you all a heads up that students in their respective areas will most likely be reaching out to fellow, you know, transit staff as kind of students, you know, engaged citizens, and their respective city council folks to try to get both city council and even county leadership to participate. We have a number of faculty members who are working on this, and they've created coursework for their students to participate. And so just wanted to let you all know and send an email that SRJC is interested in doing this. And then we have received commitments actually from Sonoma Clean Power that the Saturday after the week, we will be working to hold a visioning session about really what is the future of multimodal transportation. This ties nicely because our student population was actually interested in working with you all on another transit fair, but I think we're gonna just tell our students to come to that visioning session. And so yeah, I'll send some emails out to folks, but I just wanted to share that as public comment.
Thank you so much, David.
Can I just
stop? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so David, just wanted to let you know, this was kind of on our radar, and appreciate that you'll be following up with communication, but just in some of our discussion among the transit operators, just for you to know, the week without driving also coincides with California Clean Air Day, which is October 2nd this year. So the local bus operators are planning to all be fare free that day. And I know the students already ride fare free, but it's just something maybe for you guys to have awareness of as you plan that we will have a a fare free day. I believe we're all in agreement on Sonoma County City Bus and Petaluma Transit. Oh, Petaluma Transit's free. I keep forgetting. They're already free, whatever.
We got
But,
that too.
just another tie-in that I think works really well with the week without driving, and it's something that we're also talking internally about how we participate in it. So we look forward to following up with you.
That's great. Thank you for the update. And just to share for folks, right, you know, I wouldn't ask fellow colleagues or even my leadership if I wasn't going to participate. So actually, I've been commuting to work, taking Sonoma County Transit since April as a way to gain experience and you know, walk the walk besides just talking about it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, is it okay if I ask a related SRJC question while we have David on the stand here? I actually just had outreach stop by my office asking about information for the back to school fair that I think you're having at both campuses this week. And I had been working with Deb Zacconi maybe 6 months ago about how SRGC was going to approach selling passes for the coming year. Do you know, David, what became of that? Like, were you set up as a Clipper vendor, or are you selling monthly passes, or do you know what the status of that is? Or I can follow, you're muted. I can follow up with her if that's easier.
I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll shoot you an email, Emily. But we yeah, our bookstore is selling them as a 31-day pass vendor. So
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Emily, I know the Petaluma campus, kind of orientation back to school event is this Saturday. Maria.
Yeah, I think Carrie's gonna be there from Smart.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. All right, any other public comment? Right, let's move on to item number 3, approval of the meeting notes from the July. Are there any comments or corrections?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, passes. Item number 4 is the Go Sonoma fiscal year 24-25 Citizens Advisory Committee presentation schedule. I wanted to bring this to you. I think that you're all aware of when you're scheduled to present to our Citizens Advisory Committee, but wanted to bring the full schedule to you so that you're aware of it. The bus transit operators are scheduled to present to the committee on September 30th. That's a Monday, and the meeting starts at 4:00 p.m. And then SMART is not scheduled until April 28th, 2025. There's some time for that one. Just a note on that, included in with that presentation on the September 30th, there'll be an update from Petaluma Transit on the service expansion project under Go Sonoma Act. And the Citizens Advisory Committee has also indicated that they're interested in hearing about the mass cost effort. So plan to give, I'll work with the bus operators on putting together some overview information on that.
We're developing a bunch of intro PowerPoints, so don't
Wonderful.
start from scratch.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you.
When did you say it was?
It's the end of September, the 30th.
Okay, that is perfect.
Right, any questions on the presentation schedule? And I think in the past, there's been some coordination on the PowerPoint to make it kind of a little more uniform between the different bus operators, so help coordinate that.
What's the timing of, is that something, what's the timing of the CAC?
It's at 4:00 on Monday the 30th. So essentially the the nexus for presentations there is reporting on our measure funding. So there's an annual presentations from the bus operators. But there's also additional information that, yeah, the committee has been interested in hearing about.
Okay. I know I will be out of town, but I could definitely help prepare a PowerPoint. And
Wonderful.
maybe you or someone could put out.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that. Right, so let's move on to item number 5, which is the SCTA Comprehensive Transportation Plan update, and Chris will provide an update.
Yeah, thanks, Dana, and good morning, everyone. Let me just get some slides queued up here. Drew, can you, open that up? All right. Thank you. Start this. So most of you are familiar with our CTP or Comprehensive Transportation Plan. So we're actually kicking off an update to the plan this fall. So we've been doing some preliminary work, so I wanted to just give an update on kind of what our plan is with this update, what the schedule is, and what we'll be focusing on. So here's a quick overview of what I'll be covering today. Just a quick discussion on what the CTP is. Most of you have been through a number of these cycles, but I'd like to just cover that briefly. I'll talk about why we're updating it now, what we'll be focusing on as part of this update, and the schedule for the project. So the CTP, there are 3 or 4 different pieces to the CTP generally. So one, it's really a visioning document for transportation in Sonoma County. So we work with our board and advisory committees to craft a vision, right? Where do we want to be in 20 or 30 years as far as transportation is concerned? Along with that, we set goals as part of that vision, and use that to guide our funding and other transportation decisions as we go forward. It's also a reference document, so we collect a lot of information and data and include it in the document. So it's on the shelf and it can be used in planning throughout the county. I know we use it a lot as a reference document. Our board members use it quite often and refer to it as well. So that's another useful aspect of the CTP, is to gather all that information in one place, produce graphics that can be used as we're planning across the county. And then another very important piece is, having a guiding document that we use for transportation funding decisions and long-term planning. So our CTP feeds into the regional transportation plan that MDC and ABAG produce. So the RTP is a financially constrained document. So the CTP is a place where we can take a look at more vision or conceptual projects that may not be fully funded yet, and have them kind of in the mix at this level. And as they get closer to implementation and funding, they can trickle up into the RTP. And we also are required to have an updated policy and planning document for certain funding sources. So that's another requirement why we update the CTP. So we update it every 4 or 5 years. We've developed 5 CTPs in the past. The last one was adopted back in 2021. That 4 or 5 year cycle roughly links up to the RTP update cycle. So we have a chance to look at the projects and policies and changing additions on that cadence to make sure we're kind of in line with, current trends and what current project priorities are. So quite a bit's changed since 2021 when we were updating the last CTP. We kicked that off right before the COVID lockdown started. So we completed most of that plan remotely. So we're looking forward to taking a look at where we're at now and incorporating, changing additions into this current update. So I already mentioned a lot of this. So there are a lot of different trends in transportation that we've seen over the past 4 years. Work from home rates are certainly higher. Non-motorized and transit use is changing. And we want to track progress on how we're doing on our vision and goals for the CTP. We have a new transportation sales tax measure that's gonna be coming online next year, Go Sonoma, so it's important to consider that and include a discussion of that in the plan, especially in relation to projects and different programs. One new requirement that MDC is asking for is a near-term implementation plan. So in the past, the CTP's been really looking out to that 25 to 30-year planning horizon. So we'd actually like to look at the next 10 years as well. So what can we do, in the near term? What do we have for? So we'll be working closely with David and Shauna and the projects team to, line up funding and look at what's on the near-term horizon out of that.
Is that the first time you're gonna do that for the CTA?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we've had, strategic implementation plans for Measure M.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and line up that work with the CTP and have it kind of fill that requirement. So yeah, that's a new thing that we'll be doing this time around. We also want to have an updated CTP to feed into the next RTP cycle. So Plan Bay Area 2050 plus, even though it's very live right now, it's going to be wrapping up towards the end of next year, and MDC is going to be kicking off the next RTP at the start of 2026. So it's weird to think about that, right? Still in the middle of the current planning cycle. So we want to be ready to feed projects and policies and information into the next RTP. And then there's a ton of planning going on right now. We have our active transportation plan, the mascots effort. We're going to be developing 2 community-based transportation plans, 2 newer ones. Sonoma Clean Power is doing a lot of work as well. They have a transportation needs assessment and housing needs assessment. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that we want to basically learn from as we go forward.
Clean power is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have a couple of outreach efforts that are talking, they're talking to people in the community about electrification and transportation, and electrification of their housing. So we want to incorporate a lot of that information, especially on the outreach side. So one thing we're very cognizant of is people are being asked to comment on all these plans, and we don't want to get out there again and people are feeling like they're not heard. Why are you asking us the same questions over and over and over again? So I'll talk about that a little bit as part of our outreach strategy for this plan, but these are the general areas that we're going to be focusing on as part of this update. We're looking at it as more as a limited and technical update. So we feel like the goals and vision are pretty, still current and in line with our priorities as staff and our board. So we don't want to really dig into that too much. So we're going to be looking at refreshing our outreach, right? Like tapping into those other planning efforts that are going on and making sure what we learned as part of our last CTP outreach is still relevant, and looking at what we can learn from these other efforts. We're going to provide a progress report on how we're doing in our goals, right? Not changing those goals wholesale, but looking at, are we moving in the right direction, or, is there room for improvement? One thing that we do as part of the CTP is we do a performance analysis, look at future conditions and, try and get a picture or idea of where we're going in the future and how our projects and goals and priorities can help us, move to where we want to go. We'll be updating the reference sections of the plan, so that's still useful and relevant. We'll update the project list, drop projects off that are not live anymore and add new projects that are new priorities. And then I already mentioned that short-term implementation plan, that 10-year look at what's possible in the near term. So as far as our outreach strategy, what we really want to do here is take a look at all these other planning activities and summarize common themes that keep popping up over and over again, right? And make that the focus of our outreach. And there are a few different reasons we want to do that. We want to ensure that people know they're being heard, right? Like, you've told us this over and over again. We're going to focus on it. Is it still relevant? Let's maybe dig into that issue a little more, in a little more detail. If safety keeps popping up, let's explore that a little bit more, right? Like, we've heard your concern about safety. Let's talk about that and think about that more. So we also want to reach new people. In the past, we've had public meetings, and, as part of the last CDP, we did a lot with virtual outreach, since that's where we were all at that point. So we'll be doing some of that, but we want to try a few new things as well. We want to have some video content that, is short, 2 or 3 minutes. And I know a lot of you have had good experience with that as well at, maybe reaching different groups of folks in Sonoma County. So we want to do some of that. Really digging into some of these themes and getting some feedback from that. We're gonna be doing pop-up outreach at different existing events, where people are at, getting feedback that way. Pushing information out on social media, having an online survey, an online portal. And then, of course, we'll have some traditional in-person workshops and meetings as well, a few focus groups. So here's a look at our goals that we're not planning on really changing at this point. So we have 4 different goals. Maybe I'll just read off the vision really quick. So we worked, pretty comprehensively with our board as part of our last CTP update to develop the vision and goals. So the vision is to connect people and places as we transition to a zero emissions transportation network. So pretty broad, it covers a lot of different things, and there are 4 different goals. One is to ensure that our transportation system is connected and reliable. That includes things like reducing congestion, but not specifically focused on congestion, but making sure our transportation system is safe and that people have access to where they want to go, right? Moving away from congestion reduction to improving access and mobility. Looking at making our transportation system more safe and well maintained, making it community oriented and place based. So recognizing that transportation and land use are so, tightly connected, right? And working on making those connections better. And then working on making our transportation system zero emissions. So we've identified a number of performance measures as well for each of these goals. So we'll go ahead and report on progress in these areas as part of our work. Likely in the next couple of months, we'll have a presentation to our board, and we can bring it to this group as well, showing how we're doing in each of these areas with charts and some numbers. This is our update schedule. So there are 5 major tracks that we're going to be working on as part of the CTP update. So public outreach is going to be happening the entire time. So we're kicking off this summer. We'll be pushing out an online survey this fall. So we're working on developing those questions. Currently, we'll have some public workshops and pop-up participation next spring and summer, and then we'll have a public rollout of the plan and comment period next fall or winter. So that's the rough schedule for outreach. As far as the vision and goals, we're not planning on changing those goals, but we'll be developing that progress report this fall, and then updating any metrics as appropriate. So we may have a few questions about the transit metrics. So as we get further along on that, we may ask to have a discussion of this group on what the best metric to measure, complete transit access would be. We're also working on updating our technical analysis. So right now, Adam Garcia on our team is working to update our forecast for the travel model. So we can use that as part of our performance assessment and policy evaluation. So that will be going on the rest of this year through next summer, fall. We're going to be releasing a call for projects for the CTP later this fall as well. So a number of you have been part of that process in the past. So what we generally do is we provide a list of what's in the currently adopted CTP. So you can review that and then have a chance to update that information and then add new projects as well. So we'll likely be following a similar process and still determining if we'll use the online form or just use spreadsheets. So if you have any thoughts on how that process went last time, if it was easy to work or not,
It was so long ago.
I know, it's like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, still developing those materials. So next summer, the projects team, David and Shauna and Margot, will be releasing the SCTA funding program cycle 2 call for projects as well. So that'll be tied to that near-term 10-year implementation plan. So as we develop the CTP project list, that'll include that, big world of vision projects that may not be financially constrained. And those can trickle into those, that funding program that looks at the different funding streams coming into SCTA and, making sure that those funding sources are lined up with the right projects. So as part of that, we generally do some sort of prioritization and scoring. So I think that's likely to happen as part of that process. And then towards the end of next year, all of that will roll into that 10-year implementation plan, which will likely be a technical memorandum and an appendix of the CTP. And then we'll be writing the CTP as well. So we'll be taking all the work and materials produced in these other tracks. And then starting next summer, we'll work on updating the actual content of the CTP, having a draft next late summer, fall, getting comments on that, and then rolling out the final CTP by the end of 2025. So it's ready for that next RTP cycle. So we have about a year and a half. Usually we take about 2 years, but that's why we're kind of focusing our efforts. So we can have everything ready for that 2026 kickoff for the next RTP. One thing we've done, our board has asked us to kind of lay out all of our different planning activities at the SCTA level to show kind of everything that's going on concurrently and what's coming up and kind of how this all interrelates. So you can see the CTP timeline up at the top, and all these other planning activities that are going on, right? We have the active transportation plan that's going through next spring or summer, the community-based transportation plan efforts for South Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park are just kicking off this summer, and those will be wrapping up at the end of next year. Plan Bay Area, the current work should be wrapping up next year, and then the next RTP, which includes the regional housing needs assessment, is going to be kicking off again in 2026. And that the RENA process is kind of amps everything up, right? So
It's also amazing that Plan Bay Area 2050 plus ends, and then they just start again.
they just, yeah.
We update this every 4 years. I mean, all the time.
All the time.
Constantly.
It's always happening. At least RENA wasn't part of this one, but yeah, that's a very charged topic that the planners are already starting to think about right now. So mascots is also going on. That SCTA funding program cycle 2 will be kicking off next year. And that includes, ABAG 4 and a number of other funding sources that are coming in. Will be Dana and staff are working on developing an RFP to get a travel demand management plan put together as well. So that'll be happening over the next 12 to 16 months. And then as part of our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, we have a pretty big chunk of money allocated to developing a countywide safe routes to school plan. So this is just the SCTA stuff, right? There's a lot of other stuff going on. So
Chris, have the CBTP plans kicked off on it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had our kickoff meeting with the consultant yesterday, actually.
Okay.
So I'll be reaching out to get participants for the project TAC. So that's, next couple of weeks, you'll be hearing more. So yeah, that's just the first update on the CTP. We'll have, more information as we develop these materials, but just wanted to let you know that this is going on, what the rough schedule is, and we'll have a lot of touch points with you going forward. So I think the next few things that you'll hear from us about are, that progress report, how are we doing? And that'll be pretty data driven with some graphics and maps and charts that hopefully you can pull from and reuse if you want as well. And then that call for projects, which is probably going to be September, October timeframe. So yeah, so that's where we're at now. Excited to have this going on.
Thank you, Chris.
Quick question. What, if anything, do you need from us at now or going forward, especially things like outreach, spreading the word, when you do the surveys? Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, we definitely, if you can get the word out for us, that'll be great. So Ross and our team, we're working together to develop materials for outreach. So as we have those together, we'll be in contact, and if you could put those in your newsletters and send them out to your list, that'd be helpful. That call for projects is going to be another thing that we'll want you to be, pay attention to and take a look at. And then as we develop the plan, those reference sections, there's a chapter that's really focused a lot on transit. So we'll want to update the ridership numbers and information in that chapter as well. So I'm sure we'll be in contact to make sure that it's updated. Is there anything you can think of that I'm missing there that we may need to?
Until the call for projects, I'm not sure.
That's a big.
Yeah, that's a big piece of information we'll be asking for. Yeah, and at some point, we're gonna, I think generally we run information by all of you on kind of like existing conditions and a summary of what's happened since the last plan, so. But that will be later on. Any other questions for Chris on the CTP update? All right, let's move on to item number 6, which is also Chris on SB 743, BMT mitigation banking and exchange program update.
Yeah, I have 3 in a row today, so hopefully you don't get too tired of me. So I wanted to provide an update on our, first off, I'll give a quick overview of Senate Bill 743. I think most of you are at least a little bit familiar with that. But associated with that, we received some Caltrans Sustainable Communities Transportation Plan and grant money to investigate setting up some sort of BMT mitigation banking or exchange program for Sonoma County. So we've just kicked off that project as well with consultants. So I wanted to give you an update on what's going on there, how you can be engaged, and how it could benefit your agencies as well. This is a potential funding source that could be used to, enhance transit operations or, transit stops, things like that.
Remind me, when was SB 743 passed?
2013, I think.
I thought it was a while.
It was a while ago, yeah. And so just a quick overview on SB 743, it basically changes the way transportation impacts are handled in CEQA. So before it was focused on congestion, so it shifted it, LOS, and it's shifted that to looking at vehicle miles traveled. So instead of looking at congestion at specific locations, it's looking at impact on the overall system. So that's the SB 743 in a nutshell. So it was supposed to be enacted by all lead agencies by 2020. So Sonoma County agencies are kind of all over the board on how far along they are. Santa Rosa has a policy in place and is implementing that. Other agencies are at different spots on the scale. So in some cases, it's being implemented on a case-by-case basis. So the idea here is with this BMT mitigation banking and exchange program is if a project is determined to have a BMT impact, what can the project sponsor or the lead agency do about it, right? When you're working under level of service or congestion, maybe the project sponsor would, expand capacity, right? Or install a traffic signal at an intersection, things like that. So with BMT, it's a different kettle of fish. So, and in a lot of cases, on-site mitigation, like installing bike racks or reducing parking, won't actually mitigate all the impacts. So there's been a lot of interest across the state in coming up with some sort of program that project sponsors can use to, mitigate their BMT impacts off-site. And if you think about VMT, it's really a regional thing, right? Like VMT is happening all across a larger area and not just within like half a mile of an individual project. So no one really has anything set up. It's kind of in the research stages at this point. A number of other counties have been a little bit further along on this and looking at different options. But we wanted to go ahead and study what may be appropriate for Sonoma County. So with that in mind, we applied for and received some Caltrans planning grant funding to basically fund a study to look at what might be possible in Sonoma County and what might be appropriate here. And so we released an RFP and hired Fair and Peers to help us out with that project. So I'll go ahead and walk through just a few kind of where we're at with the project right now. So as I said, the goal is really to come up with some recommendations for some sort of system or program in Sonoma County. It could be a bank that people pay into that could be used to fund improvements across the county. It could be an exchange program where like a housing developer could be lined up with some sort of transportation improvement offsite and help implement that or pay for it. So those are a few different ways this could go. So there are 4 different phases of the project. Right now, we're in the scoping and outreach phase. Try and make this a little bit easier to see.
Chris, you said that all the incorporated jurisdictions had to be in compliance by 2020. Yeah, and so that's why I went to Santa Rosa. So what is this covering? Just the county as a whole?
So it's providing
You already have your
recommend.
program, right?
Yeah, it's providing recommendations for a way to mitigate VMT. So jurisdictions, if they don't have a VMT policy in place, which covers, when is there an impact? That's the first question, right? So the state has provided recommendations, kind of a baseline for what would be a VMT impact. So a project will analyze, how much VMT is being generated and, whether or not that's above or below a threshold. And that kind of triggers whether or not there's a VMT impact. But the lead agencies are able to set those thresholds themselves based on local conditions.
Okay.
So Santa Rosa's done that, Windsor's done that, Petaluma has done that. So Katati as well. So I may be forgetting one of the jurisdictions, but those are the jurisdictions that are maybe a little further along in Sonoma County.
Okay.
Along with that is how you mitigate. So that's kind of a big question mark. We've already worked with the consultants to develop a VMT mitigation calculator, which is focused on those on-site mitigations. But in a lot of cases, that's not going to cover completely mitigate what's going on, right? So now we're investigating, okay, if that doesn't work, what do you do then? How can you pay into something, a bigger pool to mitigate the VMT offsite and improve, reduce VMT countywide?
So there doesn't necessarily have to be a next directly with that project, but it can go into a larger bank where you can create projects countywide.
That's part of the question is how much of a nexus you need, right?
Sorry, I'm digging in.
Oh, it's a good question.
That's a
Really,
great
that's a
question.
good question, yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely going to be investigated as part of this process. SCTA's legal counsel, we have a rep from county council that's going to be part of the project pack. That's going to be weighing in on those legal issues. Fair and Peers also has legal counsel on retainer to provide, review of things like that, right? Like, if we have a bank, what kind of nexus do you need? If it's an exchange, what are the legal requirements? So, we know a little bit and we can read about it, but it's really important to have that, since we're dealing with CEQA, right? It's really important to have that legal review. Yeah. So yeah, right now we're in the scoping and outreach phase, or we're reviewing a draft key issues memo, which is lining out things like that, right? Do we need to consider nexus? What types of projects should we be thinking about? What types of program should we be looking at? And, basic things like who would administrate it, right? Like what area of geography would it cover? Would it be something that would just be Sonoma County, maybe a regional thing, maybe just a jurisdictional thing, some things like that. We also have an outreach plan and stakeholder list that we're developing. And we're setting up the project TAC. So that's a key way that you can interface with this project. So I have a slide that's covering the TAC specifically. So we'd love your participation on that TAC, since, a lot of the projects that may be identified as potential candidates for this banking or exchange program could be transit improvements. So once we're through the scoping and setting up the TAC, we'll start looking at the different types of programs or projects that could be candidates for funding through this program. And it's really important that they reduce VMT, right? Like that's kind of the key nexus, at least from the analytics standpoint right now, as they, that's the whole point of the program is to reduce VMT. And then we'll talk about the administration as well, and there'll be ramifications. We'd also like to have a pilot. So once we have an idea of what may work for Sonoma County, take some example projects and run it through the system, right? Like, what does this whole system blow up? What are the things like that? So we'd like to have 2 of those that we can test out. And then based on what we learned from the pilot and the work with the TAC, we hope to have some final recommendations that we can take to our board at the very end. And so once we have that, it'd come to implementation, right? Like we'd have some recommendations, and then either SCTA or some other organization would need to implement if our board signs off on our recommendations. So here's the schedule. We're just kicking off right now. It'll be running through the end of next year. We'll be meeting with stakeholders later this year, but you can see these 4 blue dots. So it's the project TAC. We're envisioning that group meeting 4 times. And I have a summary of what they would meet about at each of these meetings. The pilot we're looking at running from next spring through next fall, and then putting together the draft recommendations next fall and winter, and then taking it to our board at the end of next year. I think this should all be in the agenda. So the TAC, let me jump to how we'd like to structure this right now. So we'd like to have at least one representative from each local jurisdiction. So we've identified some of those, but also transit agencies, right? So a lot of the funds flowing into this could go directly to transit improvements. So Jared, I think, is already on the hook. I saw you on the list, so Baron Pierce probably already talked to you about that, but
Yeah.
okay, but it'd be great to have someone from City Bus and Sonoma County Transit, at least receiving the materials. And attending meetings would be great as well. So we envision 4 virtual meetings across the span of the project over the next 18 months.
Can I nominate someone right now?
What's
Can you add Yuri Coslin from our
Yes.
team too? He's our VMT guy. He'll be all over this. Pretty excited.
Yeah, in the case of Petaluma, we've had a number of discussions and meetings on VMT, so we're, fairly far down the path of kind of envisioning that for the city, what it looks like, et cetera.
And
I see what happens when I don't show up to a meeting. Thanks,
All
Rachel.
right. All right.
get
Thanks, Yuri.
it aside.
Thanks for participating in the TAC.
My pleasure.
Chris, you can have it.
That's Steven. All right, so we have our transit reps. And Emily, if Smart is available as well, it'd be great to have someone from Smart as well. So just let me know if you're or someone else is available.
Yeah, we're available. We'd be happy to participate. Thanks.
So we want it to be relatively small, 15 at the most, it gets a little unwieldy past that point. And then, the responsibilities, this is a really important part, right? Like there are those 4 meetings, and we just ask that you provide feedback on, the recommendations, the potential pilot programs, things like that. So we don't want this to be another big thing that everyone has to weigh in on. This is all in the agenda packet, but this is what we're thinking of topically for each of the TAC meetings right now. So the first one would be an introduction, talking about the key issues, identifying things like nexus, right? Like we're heading into this, what do we need to be aware of as we're moving in, right? Second meeting is really to focus on potential VMT reducing projects and programs. So that'll be kind of the topic area of that meeting. What projects do you or are out there that could be, on the short list as potential candidates? And then the third meeting, we'll be doing some outreach with stakeholders and a few, community-based organizations, so getting feedback from that, summarizing that, and discussing the pilot at TAC meeting 3. And then the 4th meeting is basically just intended to be focused on the draft recommendations and providing feedback on that. So hopefully not a huge ask. At those meetings, they'd be likely scheduled for 60 to 90 minutes over the span of the whole project. So the pilot, I mentioned a little bit about that already, but we'd be looking to the TAC to help us identify some potential projects. These could be past projects, conceptual projects, or things that may be coming up. So we need to develop this concept more with the consultant and also the TAC in the first few meetings. And what we learned from that, the pilot program would really influence how we draft those final recommendations, right? If we're going through and testing projects and something just doesn't work, right, that needs to be changed. That's the intent for the pilot program. And that's it. So it sounds like we have representatives from all of you. So we're looking at scheduling that first TAC meeting sometime in September. So we'll be getting that information out to you soon. And we can bring updates as we have new information to this group as well. Is that moves along?
You have somebody from Sonoma, I assume?
We do. I think it's Will.
Alliance, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We'd love to have someone from public infrastructure too, but yeah, we'll see if we can get someone.
Let me know if needs.
Okay, great.
It'd probably be, I don't know.
That's who I would think. Yeah, he comes to our town.
So a couple of questions.
Stephen Hyder, sorry.
Okay.
A couple questions for you, and I imagine this will probably play out and be discussed during the process. Is this, do you view it as encompassing all the county or just unincorporated parts? How does it integrate potentially with the city efforts to do this? And then do you envision it as, if there's some funding source, how then would the county potentially collect it if it was city derived, often where a lot of the funds like come from? How would you create a county level source?
Yeah, those are all questions that we want to explore as part of
Okay.
the process, right? Would it be better to have a, city Petaluma program and a Santa Rosa program or a countywide? Like, I don't think we're looking at just an unincorporated area one. It would either be like a countywide or maybe a jurisdictional type program. So, or maybe looking to MPC. They haven't shown a lot of interest in setting anything up, but there's interest at the state level as well of having some sort of state program. So geography we'll be exploring. Return to source will definitely be a question, right? Like if it's being collected in Petaluma, does it go back to Petaluma or is it spread around? So that's a question to explore, right? And then the administrator is another question. Would it be SCTA? Would it be someone else? And how would that money flow? So yeah, all good questions that we want to dig into as part of the process.
Have you already looked at other counties that have been further along and already have a countywide versus individual jurisdiction programs, or is that going to be part of the process?
That's part of it.
Okay.
There isn't a county level one or regional program in place yet.
Okay.
There are a few jurisdiction level ones that have been implemented. It's simpler, right? There are fewer agencies,
Right.
so the administration's a lot easier. Contra Costa County was one of the first counties to kind of move along on this, and they stalled out at the end. Their board didn't like the list of projects that they identified. So they had to go back to the drawing board, and they're kind of working through that.
Is that a countywide program?
That was a countywide program.
That's interesting. You would think the difficult part would be the funding mechanism and all that.
Right.
You'd have that ironed out, but the project list was
Yeah.
it? Wow.
That was the sticking point.
Huh.
San Mateo and Santa Clara counties are a little bit further along, maybe 6 months to a year further along. So a lot of our project team is working on those projects. So we hope to just build on their learning there. But yeah, we're pretty early stages in this type of thing in California. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some good recommendations.
Do you know of any other parts of the county, any of the other communities like Santa Rosa are discussing BMT yet? I would assume so, since SB 743. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, then we'll hear the next one from Chris. Which is-
Sorry, it's all, is this the Chris Barney Technical Advisory?
So, yeah, should have brought cookies for intermission or something. So the last item I just wanted to give you a quick update is on the regional transit oriented communities policy. So I know a number of you are already familiar with this, but just wanted to give you an update on where this is at and where you can get more information. So, you know, I would lead with, we invited Daniel Saber from MTC to provide an update to our board on this at our July board meeting. So he gave a great overview on the TFC policy, you know, the background behind it and support MTC is giving on the process there. And our board was very engaged. So there's a lot of discussion about the policy and issues and things like that. So if you want to know more, I would encourage you to watch the recording, at least for that item, at our July 8th board meeting. So there's a good amount of background and information there. And I believe it was probably about a half an hour discussion. Drew, does that sound about right? With the board discussion on it. But just to give you a high level overview on what the TFC policy is it's really a set of policies intended to implement planned area strategies that are focused on increasing housing and commercial densities around transit. So it applies to a half-mile area around existing and planned and fixed guideway transit stops and stations, which are smart stations and stuff. Yeah, so that's the focus here. So there are 5 different pieces or 5 different sets of requirements that are included in there. There are minimum residential and commercial office densities for new development. It includes floor area ratios and dwelling units per acre requirements. It requires policies that encourage affordable housing production, preservation, and protection. That includes business stabilization policies and displacement policies, parking management policies, and transit station access policies. So there's a lot involved in there. MTC has met with every agency in Sonoma County, planning staff and planning directors. When they've told us that this is going to be a lot of work, right? Especially since a lot of jurisdictions have just gone through this process as part of their general plans and their housing element updates to update a lot of the densities, and they're going to have to reopen that back up in a lot of cases, go back to the community and say, hey, we talked to you last year, but we need to change things again now, right? So it's not a small amount of work. It's going to be, and it's not just an administrative thing, right? Like it's going to require public input and going back to councils and reopening all of that again, right? So there's been a little bit of angst associated with the requirements. So this matters because the TFC policy is going to be tied to funding, right? Like OBAG 4 is kind of the big ticket one, and I have the OBAG 4 calendar up here. So the TFC policy is going to be at some level. Compliance with this policy is going to be required to access the OBAG 4 funds. So an MDC is still discussing, what compliance means, if you're 100% compliance or if you're showing you're moving in that direction. So that's still a question mark on what that means, but it's going to be tied to that funding and potentially other regional funding at some level going forward. So there's an incentive to actually do this work, even though it's going to be pain in the neck. So with this in mind, MTC is hearing, the issues everyone's having with the process, and they're trying to streamline it and make it easier and provide support. So the things that they've been working on helping out with is they're developing an online checklist to kind of walk staff through, okay, work through the checklist, check this box, insert policies here, insert densities here, collecting that information and reporting easier. So that's one thing they're working through, streamlining that process. They're working on developing mapping tools as well, so they can look at densities and do calculations that way. So they're not starting from scratch. So that's another help they're providing. And then at some point, they'll be providing technical assistance as well. So maybe it's, you know, a planning bench where, you know, local planners can call up, you know, a consultant on the bench and get some help, right? So, yeah, a lot of work to be done still. Your planning colleagues are already in the trenches on this and, you know, thinking about it and, you know, working on it already. They'll be required to provide some sort of reporting next year. And really looking at some time in 2026 demonstrating compliance to be able to access at least OBAG form. So there's kind of a countdown going on right now on it already. And, you know, MTC is still working on figuring out, you know, getting the money out there. You know, they've told us they want people to just be demonstrating they're moving in the right direction. You know, they don't want to be coming down with a hammer when people are trying to do the right thing and trying to comply with the policy and try and meet the spirit of Plan B area, those policies, right? So they're trying to figure out how to do it. So, yeah, that's the update. I just wanted to get this on your radar and, you know, please watch that video discussion if you want to know more. Yeah, so, and I think I linked to the guidance document in the staff report if you want to go read I think it's 60 or 70 pages of information in there.
Is, and then RENA, because a lot of this stuff is also, they have to reopen all those documents for RENA, don't they?
Yeah, that's gonna,
And didn't you say that starts in 2026?
yeah, so they're gonna need to demonstrate compliance before the next RENA cycle starts. So this is gonna be looking back at the last, you know, all the work they did for the last RENA cycle and the last batch of housing element updates. So hopefully they can reuse the work they're doing for this as part of that next RENA cycle. And I've heard a lot of different opinions on how the next RENA cycle is gonna go. You know, the last cycle was really aggressive, right? Like, but the state forecasts for growth are a lot different than they were 8 years ago. So they're pretty flat, especially for the Bay Area. So we'll see how that plays out. We could have really low RENA numbers for the next cycle. But, you know, we'll see how that goes.
I'm sorry, RENA stands for Regional Housing something.
It's the Regional Housing Needs Assessment.
Needs assessment.
Yeah,
That's a terrible one.
Allocation, isn't it?
yes.
Because they're actually, and they're in like, it's not just an assessment, it's an allocation. They
Yeah.
say thou shalt put 1,000 new units in figure out where they're gonna go.
And
How often did they update that RENA numbers? 8 years?
I can't believe it was 8 years ago.
I know.
I know some Oregon County jurisdictions are still kind of like finalizing the process.
Yeah. And if you don't demonstrate you're compliant with it, you know, it can close off different housing related funding streams and transportation too. So it's tied to transportation funding too.
Really?
And then it gets all wrapped into the housing forecasts that are in Plan Bay area. So they link the two processes.
And the funding that was gonna be on the ballot, that is maybe not gonna be on the ballot anymore, is that tie into that?
That's
Is that gonna provide funding to implement?
I would say yes. So that's the Bay Area Finance Authority housing bond that may or may not happen.
Sounds like they're gonna pull it, yeah, because
Yeah.
it didn't pull very well.
Yeah, and we have it on our pack agenda tomorrow, so more information on that then, but that's intended to really provide resources to support affordable housing growth. Yeah, so you know, it would be a lot of money coming into Sonoma County to help out with affordable housing, but yeah, it's a big question mark whether or not that'll happen now, so.
You get the next one, right, Chris?
I think I'm done.
I think you're off the hook unless anyone has any questions for Chris.
I just had a question on this, because I saw in the paper like a day ago that they were being sued about the ballot language, so, and then this is a new development on top of that.
I thought I read
Potentially
that,
pulling
that,
it.
that polling didn't go very well, and so that was one of the reasons they were gonna pull it out.
Because I know even if the 55% threshold item passes, it was still polling below that.
It was, that's right, yeah. So, but they're counting on 55% passing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
but it was some dice.
Yeah.
So the Batha board did, vote to put it on the ballot. But now it's a question mark, you know, with the lawsuit and the polling, yeah, that's kind of it. It was in the Press Democrat this morning.
Okay, I'll take a look.
I'll stop sharing.
All right, great, thank you. So the next item under regional funding is the quarterly report for the Transportation Development Act, Article 3, and Transportation Fund for Clean Air Projects through the end of fiscal year 24. This is just provide for your information and has the active project on here. It's just as usual on the TFCA projects, take a look at the project completion deadlines that are in there and you know, the next ones are coming up at the end of this year, so we will need to know ahead of time if you're going to need an extension on those. Some of them may be at the end of their extensions, but we could check in on those if you have questions. Any questions on this report?
On the second page for some of the project start deadlines for the third from the top, the Petaluma Transit. And even for the Santa Rosa City Bus, battery electric bus number 3, start date 2026, is that accurate? That's
Yeah,
after the
so
completion.
the start deadline is 24 months from the execution of the contract.
Okay,
The last program cycle, the contracts were very delayed, so your deadline to start, you can certainly start before that, but your
Okay.
deadline to start is pretty far out there. The completion deadline is the completion date that was in your application. So yeah, sometimes the start deadline is after the
Okay.
completion.
that makes sense.
But yeah, it's an endpoint, not a, you can't do it until then. Right?
Thank you.
Sure. All right, if there's no other questions on this, let's move forward. We have transit integration updates. Just give I think we're just doing the local bus operator updates on this one, and then everything else is in the regional meeting report out. So let's see. We are working on the next phase of or a scope and contract for the next phase of the website work. So trying to get that in our September board agenda packet, so we can get started on that next phase, so that's exciting. I don't know if there's anything else really of note since last month. So unless anybody has any questions, we can move on to regional meetings report. And this is just for any regional meetings you attend that you have some relevant information you think the group would be interested in.
I do have a question on the website. Sorry, I know
Sure.
I just finished that item, but so is there gonna be like a transition time, or you guys already are? I looked up someone's website the other day and I was like, is this a new website or is this the old website? Where is the status currently?
So Santa Rosa has a brand new website.
Yeah,
And. Is the old one still up still?
That's a good question. I think we've started to pull stuff off. I have to
Okay.
double check it. If Matt, I don't think Matt's on. Matt, are you on? No. We were leaving the old website up because we wanted the new website to jump up the Google search algorithm so that people wouldn't find our old website and find nothing there. So it might still be up. Or some of it might still be up, but there is a redirect.
Yeah, you can still go to srcity.org / yeah. And but it does have a.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Big link to the new one.
And then Kathleen, we're getting close for the next phase to do an update of the Petaluma Transit website, the Sonoma County Transit website to match the look of the Santa Rosa City bus. That's kind of the next phase of the updates.
Got it.
And then an entry
Yeah,
website.
and a
That's-
single
that makes
landing
all
page.
landing page.
for all-
Will the single landing page have like, trip planning?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good time to talk about it too. We're talking about we're looking at some examples of thematic maps where you can see all of the transit operators in the area, and then, if you click on any route or city, it will take you to that agency's webpage.
Yeah.
So we would like to include the regional operators in there as well. So that, it would link directly to Smart and Mitigation web pages as well. But the trip planner ideally, works for any operator.
Yeah. Cause I know like one of the key things Mascots is trying to address is just legibility. Like there are, you wanna go from Santa Rosa to Petaluma, there's a bunch of choices. So how do you, without having to go to each individual website and compare times and whatever, like, is there a centralized way to make a decision about what are my options? And yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it will use the same
It'll just. be
data
Google
as
Maps.
Google Maps, right? So, whatever options would come up on maps. And I think there's, or the transit app.
Maria, our put in the chat, the transit app.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know we use a transit app widget on our website, and that was when we redesigned our website. Part of the desire there was that Marine Transit made the decision to remove their information. We still wanted to be able to provide that clarity since there's so much overlap, so it would make sense to have something like that for some,
Yeah. Yeah, and we're still figuring out where that single landing page will live and what it's called and all of that.
Thanks.
Any other regional meeting updates?
So Transit 2050 Plus outreach starts this week, I think, and continues for several weeks across the Bay Area. I believe there's a pop-up event in Petaluma, and then at some function in the town of Sonoma, I believe. I'm a little bit more familiar with the other locations. So I'll be at the San Rafael Farmers Market event at the end of the month. And that project continues. We already talked about mascots. There's various meetings on mascots ongoing. Trying to think if there's anything else. Regional mapping and wayfinding. I'm trying to think of if there's been any new developments since the last time we talked about it. And I don't think there have been. They're just working on fine tuning a lot of the designs. So, like our agency, for example, is at both of the pilot locations. So they've been talking to us about like the actual verbiage that's on signs and that sort of thing. And our Route 580 is also a pilot for a more specific like QR code, like schedules display at the bus stops themselves. And so they've been working with us on that as well.
Nice.
the 580 was like, they wanted a route that didn't have too many bus stops, linked at least a couple regional hubs. And then conveniently, it's one leg of a 2-leg journey between the 2 regional pilot locations, so
yeah,
it all fell into place.
Nice.
And then the other thing, let's see if I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting. There's so many of these meetings. But that's all I have.
Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I wanted to mention that the Plan Bay Area Petaluma pop-up has been rescheduled to August 27th. And they're still determining whether they're gonna put it at the Smart Station or the Petaluma Transit Mall. And they're looking for staff volunteers. So I don't know if they reached out to all the transit agencies directly. I hope they did. But yeah, August 27th. And I'll try to forward the details on once they get them worked out.
Yeah, I think there was a session in downtown Nevada as well, a pop-up, but I don't know the specifics because I'm gonna be at APTA, so I kind of skimmed over it personally. Hopefully somebody shows up with that.
Anything else?
Oh, actually, I remember now what the other one is Caltrans Bay Area Transit Plan.
Yeah.
I haven't been the staff person directly on it, although I'll be taking over for Golden Gate. But it sounds like there's a lot of pushback on their effort to have performance metrics in the plan. It was, I read through the PowerPoint that was forwarded to me and it was voluminous, I guess would be. So hopefully Caltrans, I'm surprised that with both Alta and TMD onboarded consultants that they would have produced a product that was that content heavy in terms of reporting requirements and that sort of thing. So it sounds like that they're going back to the drawing board on that one as well. I'll be plugged in starting at the next TAC, so I'll probably have more to report at that point in time.
Can I ask a really basic question? Because I've had awareness of this plan, but what is how does it fit in to everything else that's happening? Like transit transformation,
It's for transit within the state right of way, basically.
Okay,
So
right, okay.
for a lot of local transit operators, it's mostly irrelevant. But for an agency like Golden Gate,
Yeah,
it's integral to our service because most of our bus service runs on state right of way.
so this is potentially an opportunity if there's projects that transit operators that operate in the state right away want to see happen, that you can get them identified. Is there potential?
And this is the thing that I'm not fully plugged in yet, but it's like a longer term planning. 2050 is a popular year to look at it at this point in time, since it's about 25 years out. So what I don't know is if there's actually a specific project list at the end product or if it's all policy oriented. So far, it's been only policy oriented, but it seems like you're laying out the framework to be able to make decisions on projects, but whether there's actually any projects identified is unclear to me.
Be nice if this was connected to the statewide transit transformation task force work. I don't know if it is, but that would seem like a good connection, but this statement. Let us know if it is. Cool.
I don't know if any agencies here are really involved in that besides.
I've gone to a couple meetings.
Okay, so
Yeah,
probably more than I do.
well, but
Because we do. Service along highways, not one-on-one, but.
Yeah.
Other behind it, so. Still trying to wrap it in there.
yeah, it's very.
Has so we've been working on the Tamalpais project and the issue of TSP, that Caltrans has no standard and actually can't agree to do TSP at the Tamalpais. Is that issue come up at all? Because that seems like an important one for Caltrans to address.
So
in terms of
ironically,
transit.
with all of these transit first policies and these transit plans, Caltrans recently came back to our agencies and said, so they're redesigning the Tamalpais Drive interchange in Corte Madera. And their proposal is to move the bus path, to get rid of the bus path and have bus stops on the ramps. And, you know, as mitigation for that impact to transit, we asked for TSP so that we're not too heavily delayed. And now, what has it been, 6 months or a year later, they came back to us and said, just kidding, we can't do TSP.
We can't do that either, huh?
Because our standard controller isn't configured that way. And if somebody wants to take ownership of the controllers, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, like that's the.
But the amount
If
of, like,
Porter
a
Madera wants to take
solution.
over the signal and then pay for maintenance henceforth, like we dispose of it and give it to Porter Madera, then sure, you can do TSP, but otherwise. Seems like an extremely insufficient answer,
Yeah.
given that they're doing a transit plan.
Right, and so, you know, it's still a little, until we meet with Caltrans on
Yeah,
what their official line is, you know, our GM used to work at Caltrans.
yeah,
So he's very interested in this topic, and I expect some significant pushback from us because, you know, this is one of, 10 bus paths that we serve.
yeah.
And they, you know, all of them are kind of on the radar at Caltrans for changes. And, you know, a 2-minute delay at 10 bus stops, that's a 20-minute longer trip.
Yeah.
And there goes your transit competitive.
Yeah, that sounds like it's right for a policy right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I was looking at it with, you know, we've got, like I said, a lot of our services on highways and stuff, like example. Highway 12, we're looking at intersection improvements there, we're looking at either a signal or a roundabout. At Highway 12 in Fulton. And we've got a couple of bus stops further back from that, maybe a quarter mile away. And we're kind of going back and forth with them about, do we use this signal, do we move the bus stops up, or do we provide a pedestrian crossing at that other location? And so, I mean, yeah, it's like how, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how, is this a policy document, or are we looking at specific locations?
Yeah.
Right, and that's, you know, the challenge, well, I'm preaching to the choir here, but every time Caltrans comes up with an idea, it's always at the detriment to transit, right? It's always, oh, there's a bus, what are buses, why are they on our highway?
They're in the way.
It's just, yeah, it's really starting from zero every time, and for every project, you know. So hopefully this document could.
Yeah.
But then that would require somebody else at Caltrans to actually read it, which
There's usually about a 10-year delay on policies that are developed. At least 10 years. right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Caltrans.
Anyway, that's all I have to add.
Thank you. Yuri.
Yeah, I'll just add on the Caltrans discussion. I know we have routes that operate on 12, like in Santa Rosa. We have a number of bus stops that we've been unable to get improved, and I think that's an important conversation for us to stay involved in too, Stephen, if we can provide any support. I know I went to some of those Highway 12 meetings as part of the city, and you know, I was pitching that we needed bus stops both at the Fulton intersection as well as that one just west as well. At this point, City Bus doesn't have any designs for service to go north south on Fulton, but it should be planned for if in the future. Yeah.
Just for perspective, I guess, well, since Caltrans isn't here to hear it, we got an email recently from somebody else at Caltrans. Who was basically like, oh, in words or less, can we just get rid of your Tiburon wide bus pad? Just, you know, okay, not replace it, or it was like, did you talk to other people at Caltrans? Have you talked to TAM? I mean, it was just, you really have to stay on top of Caltrans.
Tell our interns that to watch out for this. Asking these questions.
It's like an email our customer service inbox. I was like, okay. Luckily, we're smaller than words of email.
Your customer service.
Yeah.
That question.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Can I add, I mean, Caltrans must have some policies around multimodal bike ped connecting communities. I know in the cities, what is it? The GHG emissions policy, there's a section around Caltrans concepts on Route 12. But I mean, has anybody compiled like a list of Caltrans policies around transit or multimodal, like that are kind of from higher up than, that are kind of tools that we can use?
I know they have, because it has an acronym of shocking. It was part of this, was it the statewide transportation plan?
Is it CAPC?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
yeah.
Wait, what?
CAPTI?
CAPTI.
Yeah,
I
it's
forget.
climate and a bunch of other things. Transportation's probably in there. It has a T. I knew it would have a T because the acronyms always fit T. And I know the C is climate. But I do think it was a set of guiding principles that they adopted, and I think it was the last statewide transportation plan. And I do think it has started to filter, so that was adopted, what, a few years ago?
2021.
2021, so by 2031, by Stephen's calculation, it will have actually filtered down to like the person who called the customer service. But I do think that they have, like, the policy framework is in place. I just think the filtering is extremely slow. And there's like so much, the way we've always done, there's so much process in the way we've always done things, and traffic engineers particularly, that it's really, and they have like Wingate, who's great, and they have the bike ped people who are great, but they're two people, and then they have like whole systems of traffic engineering that it's hard to actually infiltrate these policies into those. And honestly, I just don't think they know how to do it. They're like, I know how to do the thing I've always done. But I do think, so all that to say, Yuri, I do think the policy framework is in place. There's a place to point to. I just think the actual getting down to the individual project managers is extremely challenging.
Right, but and so for somebody like Steven who's sitting in the room talking about Fulton, Steven, do you know what those, I mean, I almost think it'd be good if we had like a document that we're all able to point to when we're having these discussions. I don't know, I see David just pointed to a BRT coordination support document from Caltrans. So it just seems like we need a tool that we can all be saying kind of the same thing. I don't know, that seems useful.
And we just need to research and dig and find these policies.
I will say, to Caltrans' credit, on Tamalpais, it's been very much fits and starts, and the project managers changed 3 times or something, but we all sent comment letters. We heard back like 8 months later or something, and the PM had changed by that point, and they honestly engaged with us. And they did come back with a completely new proposal. And the city and Caltrans had applied for like $40 million more for this interchange, which originally it was a safety and ADA compliance project. It got expanded to a bike ped project, basically, to add a better bike facility across Tamalpais, but that transit still wasn't integrated, and they engaged with us in a pretty, good faith way. And the design they came back with has everything we asked for.
Yeah,
So this last hiccup is actually maybe it's just a hiccup, but they came back with a project that basically has a dedicated bus lane on the on-ramp on the left-hand side, which requires them to build a right-hand side boarding island in the middle of the on-ramp, which, safety, we'll have to figure that part out in the next phase. And TSP, and it basically, we didn't have a lot of comments. We were like, yeah, this is kind of the best case scenario, and we were sort of surprised. It's not as good for bike ped. Like, there's still some balancing that has to be done, and it's lengthened the process, but it was heartening, actually. I do want to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I'm glad that they came back. But I mean, it also did require correspondence from our GM, I think, to get it done.
It did,
And I don't think
correct.
it happened otherwise.
But it did happen.
But it did happen.
So that's the policy, go to your GMs.
Mhm.
Sort of light a fire.
And Dina, like, it was at all of the executive level is kind of where, and then I think that's how it trickled down to like, okay, we actually have to design this project as like a first project. But so I'm not saying it was easy or didn't take years, but yeah.
Well, I think especially in the Bay Area, most of the urbanized area has BART and Caltrain and Amtrak Capital Corridor. So maybe the local office isn't used to bus projects on state highways versus like Southern California where it's.
Rural areas.
Yeah.
Yuri, did you have something else?
Sure, I'll just add one last thought, which was regarding the Highway 12 at Fulton project. I think I know that SCTA staff's very much involved in that. So I think it also, for those Caltrans projects, the local, the SCTA in this instance, it requires some leadership from SCTA to kind of form that project. Because I know you guys are hiring the consultant that's doing the work.
I think there's another meeting coming up in the next month
Yeah.
on that project. I just got a Google or a Doodle poll for that.
I do think CTA involvement in those types of projects with Caltrans is really helpful. Like TAM has been another force on the side of helping move that marine project along.
All right, well, we're at time, but if any of the transit operators want to stick around and give a little update, I'm happy to stick around a little bit. We want to just, if you have an update,
But we all had.
go ahead and
changes
start.
On the 11th, right?
Yeah.
I actually can't get our mobile statistics system to work ever since the upgrade that occurred a week or two ago. So I don't know how the new service on Route 172 is doing, since we're only 2 days in. So maybe next month I'll have some.
Wait, what's not working here?
One of our CADVL provider, one of their software packages, I can't get to work personally. I've actually been trying to troubleshoot with our IT person during this meeting, but the hope that I might have something by the time I get to the meeting, but. But yeah. So we haven't really received, just generally, we have that big schedule shift in Marin County, which affected everything downstream. The only complaints we've received have been related to transfers from specific Marin Transit routes, which, of course, we'll defer to you because, Marin Transit was one of the agencies along the SMART who really wanted to make the change, so. Obviously we prioritize whichever transfers to whichever routes, because there's only so much space at the transit center. But yeah, that's the only real news that I have on the service change for us.
Well, I would have one other thing. Anything else on the service change? No?
Oh,
We're bringing our school service back. That starts today, first day when school's coming back in Petaluma. We added a few more school trippers, but otherwise that's the only real changes for us, be minor.
same for us. Yeah. New section of Runner Park, south of, it's not a state we're serving with a new tripper, so that's the exciting thing for us.
I was just gonna, once again, remind everyone, Transit Mall relocation, September 3rd. Everyone should know, operations teams at all the agencies should have been consulted with the bus bay layout and everything. And I think there was some discussion at the marketing meeting recently about the public information that we've prepared that we're happy to share if the agencies wanna push it out on their public platforms. So if there's any questions, just let me know, but things are moving full speed ahead at this point.
And then I still wanted to touch base with you.
Oh, I know.
Transfers.
I know. Yeah, I was like, I've been on vacation for me this. I'm sorry, I didn't get back to your email, but I knew I'd see you too. Yeah, for sure.
That was on, the rest of my paternity.
Oh, right on.
Use it or lose it, right?
Yeah, use it.
On the smart side, we just wanted to let everybody know we had record-breaking total ridership for July, as well as record-breaking average Saturday and Sunday. So that's very exciting. We also have these 2 new trips. This is actually the most service we've ever run. So we're at 42 trips, which is great. And we are going to be tweaking our airport shuttle a little bit to include the Larkfield Wikiup neighborhood as well. So hoping that will have some good effects on ridership. And we are also going to be installing some real-time signage in our shelters. We're going to be putting in 32-inch e-paper, e-ink displays. So that'll be nice. There's a lot of screen real estate there. So we'll have some ability to, potentially display other partner agencies arrivals at
Are you
certain
working with a
stations.
certain? I was gonna ask, company or is just,
Yeah, the company is a Connect Point,
oh, okay.
and Modern Railway Systems will be doing the installation.
And is it through the 511 system?
I think it'll be through the 511 system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really curious, maybe we can
Mm.
get some information from you because
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to install real-time signage at the toll plaza, which is not the easiest site for, trenching. I'm assuming it, well, actually, is it connected to power or?
Yeah, we're gonna do power over Ethernet. So yeah, Ethernet and wired power. We decided.
But we're definitely interested in the smaller form factor because kind of the standard MTC standard is like a 55-inch or a 65-inch, which is kind of on the large side.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah, we really like the 32-inch. It's a kind of a good balance of, kind of the small enough scale with enough real estate to display quite a lot. And with the e-ink, it's very high resolution.
Nice.
Yeah.
David, we work with, we use E as well through a company called Accentia. Locally, it's through VIX. Accentia is a Swedish.
Okay, so
But
you
it's
did do
it's
this
they use
as well.
batteries. They use like 3-year batteries. So you don't have to worry about connecting that to.
Actually,
Yeah.
like to hear more about that as well, because then, because if we don't have to trench to the bus stops,
No.
we're really.
Yeah.
And
No, that
it's
shouldn't be
not- it's not
necessary.
Solar either. We
Yeah.
tried solar.
Well, there's no sun ever at the.
Right.
And that was
For 3 months a year.
The batteries work, we've been using them for a couple of years now, and they're
Yeah.
working great.
I'm actually really serious because depending on the price of that solution, considering we have to trench and then buy
Right.
an industrial strength monitor.
It's actually
Right.
It's not
less money.
cheap,
No.
so.
It's actually less money when you factor in all the trenching and the running the conduit and electrical, yeah.
I'm gonna make a note to touch base with you. on
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
because I think we want to do something this fiscal year. On that to make MTC happy.
Are they at all the stations? All the shelters?
They will be, yes. Yeah.
Multiple shelters per platform, or will there just be one per station per
I
platform?
think for maybe Larkspur we'll have 2 per platform, but there will at least be 1 per platform. Yeah, yeah.
Marin Transit surpassed 100% of pre-COVID, so that's pretty exciting. We did just do a big update to our board on paratransit ridership. Our paratransit ridership is significantly lagged. It's at like 40% of pre-COVID, whereas the Bay Area as a whole is more like 60 to 80, depending on. And so we did a big analysis, and it's due to a variety of things, but if you're interested, you can go to our board. I won't go into all the details, but I think if we feel a little more confident that it's not people just not having mobility, there's other options. People are transitioning to our on-demand service, our Catch a Ride program, which we've now partnered with Lyft, Uber, and Taxi, so people can use vouchers on all 3 providers. So we just added Lyft, and people just want that kind of on-demand and non-shared ride solution. So paratransit, I think, just isn't. It's not working for people's needs as much. Also, there's day programs that aren't doing as much programming in person, and there's a lot of different factors factoring in, but made us feel a little more confident that 40% is not necessarily a bad thing. It's that people are still getting the mobility they need. They're just not using paratransit specifically. We're procuring APCs, which is very exciting. So sometime, hopefully by the end of the year-ish, we'll be transitioning to APCs, which is exciting update for us. And we are also procuring a new provider for our non-Golden. We have 2 providers for our fixed route, so that the contract that's not the Golden Gate contract. So that's a pretty big deal. Or maybe it'll be no change.
Is it going out? Oh, so yeah, going out there.
It's going out to bid soon, yeah. So and yeah. The other thing I'd say is we just kicked off our first transit priority corridor project. So we're looking at 3 corridors in Marin. It's funded by ABAG. And we just kicked that off and are excited to be doing our first transit priority project. And we also, I'll say one other thing for the CTP. So TAM is also doing the CTP, and they have a whole bunch of maps. And for the first time, they're going to have a transit priority corridor map. So there's that's exciting for us also, just to actually illustrate in Marin County, like what are the most important corridors for transit service? Not that we're gonna have BRT on all of them or anything, but just that transit should, at a base level, like do no harm to transit on these corridors. Like don't put in class 4 bike lanes that totally disrupt the transit experience or something, and then ideally that over time, we can eventually actually maybe get TSP on those corridors and maybe some other types of transit priority types of treatments. So we're excited about that. Yeah.
So, speaking of ridership, because I guess we're obligated to report, just so that you know, our ridership for July on buses is up about 1%. So we're still seeing upward growth, but it's definitely slowing down over the summer compared to the previous year. So that's 2024 to 2023. So we're still seeing growth. On the ferry side, it is still much more robust, which has been the trend. So it's up 16.7% for our ferry service. So it's still growing strong. Interestingly, what we've seen is that Friday is kind of lagging behind. It's still busier than Saturday and Sunday, but that difference between Saturday and Friday is not nearly as significant as it used to be for us for ferry. And so we're not really sure if Friday's the new Sunday, not the new Saturday, but at least on our ferry side of things, which you would think with recreational travel that Friday would be pretty strong if people are following, you know, non-standard schedules, but go figure. And then for our bridge traffic, which, you know, is a big funding source for our transit service, that's been flat over the summer. It's actually down slightly for the month of June. So, you know, that has potential funding implications for our transit service. So, well, I mean, obviously we track it regularly, but that's something we'll be keeping our eye on. But sorry to feel your place, Steve.
Okay, well, I already went. Yeah, I talked about our tripper service and how we expanded it in the neighborhood in front of Park north of Sonoma.
A few more updates for Petaluma Transit. Our fixed route ridership in July was up 12% from year prior. Paratransit up 19%. We're up about 30% for FY24 compared to FY23. July, the first full month of complete fare free, was up 43% on the fixed route side. So still interesting to see how that's going to play out over the next several months. We've been doing a lot of outreach at school events. We went to about 5 different school events at SRJC this Saturday. Petaluma's Night Out was a week ago. A lot of great turnout for that. Mentioned in service, the trippers returning. Electrification, we're at 90% design level for our yard improvements. Still waiting on the electric buses to arrive next February, 4 of them. There's been a good amount of construction work at ETC, the Eastside Transit Center, which is coming to a head this week and the next couple of weeks. So we're doing some detouring there. So riders can expect to see some delays and interruptions while we get that resolved, and it'll be a lot better once it's done, new concrete and better bus experience. Tomorrow there's a Petaluma Safe Routes School meeting, City Hall, 4 p.m. We're going to give a higher level overview of that process that the city does regularly. Maria, did you have any updates you want to give on fare free micro?
Micro always, and fare free, wonderful. I feel like we have to have like confetti with 40+% increase. That's exciting. Our microtransit is scheduled to launch September 30th. We do have the finalized map of the service area. Marketing assets should be available soon. The name of the service is Lumago, for those of you who are not aware. And yeah, so it's going to be an exciting time.
Go.
Lumago.
Lumago.
Capital L, capital G, one word.
And when's the launch? I missed.
September 30th.
That's it, bro.
Great. That was everyone.
I forgot our most exciting update,
Okay.
which is that our board approved the purchase of a property.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the due diligence period. It's, you know, there's no guarantees, but that's a really big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
All right, that brings us to other business comments and announcements. I think
I
Steph.
have a quick announcement. Yeah, made it to the end of the meeting. So TPCC made a really great flyer for recruitment. And if anyone has suggestions of like an email list, or if you want us to share with you I would really appreciate that. We want to get it out as far as possible and recruit as many people for TPCC. And we have some flyers for buses to promote our emergency ride home program. So if you would like some flyers for your buses, let us know and we'll give them to you. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any other announcements? Comments?
I'll just add that I'm tabling at for the SRJC's welcome day tomorrow. If any other agencies want me to table with their materials, let me know. I think we have some guaranteed ride home pamphlets that I'll also have at the table. Thanks for the reminder, Steph.
Okay, yeah, Yuri, let us know if you don't have them. I think we still have some. We have stacks of flyers if you need materials.
Great, thank you. I noticed Rachel's gone, so I would say give them to her, but I think she just left. So
She'll be back.
okay, great. Give her a few.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before she leaves. Thank you. All right, anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
That motion.
I know you were on it.